Oh, today is, I think, the 17th of June. It's about 7:47 in the morning, and our weather here is sunny and let's see, it's 75 degrees, high 92, and I believe sunny. And let's see. Yeah, it'll be warm probably for 12 to 3:30 or something like that. Okay, so Iran said there's no deal unless Israel not only stops attacking Beirut, but leaves southern Lebanon and stops fighting Hezbollah. Netanyahu firmly said that's never going to happen. Rubio and Hegseth backed up that, and they said that it was never put into the deal. Iran doesn't care. They're putting it into the deal. There's not going to be any signing on Friday. Okay, rest assured. And Trump openly told Rubio and Hegseth that if they didn't like the Iranian deal, and they were talking against it, he'd fire them. So are we at the point where America turns against Israel, which is in prophecy? I don't know. We're getting closer, but I don't know if we're there yet. But it's approaching. Um, it's getting there, and we'll have to, see what happens. Okay, so I'm gonna go into the live stream and take a look around and make sure it's good, and I'll put a quick post up. And okay, we got plenty of sound. Reduce that a little bit. Okay. Uh, Thanks everybody for the greetings. Okay, let me get this post. It's going to take seconds, and then we'll get going. All right. Let's check for typos. No typos. Let me pin this thing. Got it. Okay, make sure everything took. Uh, it's looking good. Okay. Being a Bible believing site, I'm going to do some praise. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay, so get the glare down with this. All right, so we'll go through the details, and then I'm going to go um, into the ancient. I got something on here. Going to go into the ancient. Oh, it won't come off. Hold on. The ancient texts. Um, one set of texts will be back around the year 900 to 1000 AD or CE, whatever they call it. And the other is going to be basically a recompilation of the Codex Sinaiticus, which goes back to around 400 AD by a guy called Sweet. And we're going to translate it, and we're going to talk about the Hebrew texts again. I learned more about them, and it's not that bad, really. I'll quickly explain it. I don't trust them, but you see, the Hebrew manuscripts were all over the place. So the oldest one they really have, a complete one, is Codex Leningrad, which goes back to about 900 AD. And then they have the next one is called Codex. Codex means book. The next one is called Codex Aleppo, and that goes back to about 1000 AD. These are old books, okay? There was so many Hebrew manuscripts running around when the scribes made these codexes. They weren't, cooking the books because there were so many manuscripts, and it was Septuagints running around. So actually, the Dead Sea Scroll fragments for the Old Testament match up quite well with the Masoretic texts, the Codex Leningrad, the Aleppo, the others, and the one they predominantly used from the medieval 1500s, which is basically all the same stuff. So they didn't cook the books that way. They put vowel pointing in, which was a way they figured out how to change the meaning of the word. Did they actually change the text words? No. They added vowel pointing, and then they were telling you, oh, no, this is what it means. So all you do is ignore the vowel pointing. That's all. Okay. And when I use AI to translate it, I tell it to ignore the vowel pointing. Okay. Period. That's it. The other thing is the Dead Sea Scrolls line up pretty good, quite well with these texts, and the errors are mostly like uh, the writing of the scribe or a spelling error or something like that. Okay. So they're not substantial errors. So, bottom line, can we trust the Hebrew Old Testament, often called the Masoretic text? The answer is I believe we can. They twisted it with the vowel pointing, which we just eliminate. Now, what did they really do is they created a new set of books called the Talmud. That's how they cooked the books. And they said the Talmud overrides the Old Testament. Now, they didn't cancel the prophets out. The Talmud, I don't believe, has done anything about the prophets. What they do teach the people is they say, you can't understand prophecy. You have to be a sage or big shot rabbi or something to understand the prophecies. So the people read the prophecies, you're not going to understand them. So that's how they dealt with not cooking the books on the prophecies. You can't understand it, only the rabbis can. And the rabbis write commentaries just like Darby and Schofield wrote commentaries. They teach the people that the Torah, the first five books of Moses, was written for the heathen to throw them off the track. The real Torah, because they don't want them following the Torah, because they believe and teach that if you do the works of Moses' law, you're going to go to heaven. So they don't want, apparently, they don't want the heathen doing this. So they don't want them following the law. So if they have what's called a Gentile or a Goyim working for them on the Sabbath, that Goyim can work on the Sabbath, which is completely against Moses' law. But they don't follow Moses' law, they follow the Talmud law, which they made up themselves. So they said that Moses had an oral law for the Jews, he didn't write it down. So they say they have the oral law passed on generation to generation, and they wrote it down in the Talmud, which is very large books. They're about like this. And I think there's 10 or 12 of them. I read a good amount of it years ago. It made no sense, you know. Um, so that's how they got around this. So instead of twisting the text, which they were afraid to do, they told the people the Talmud is more important, read the Talmud. And they told them that, you see, there's the law, the Moses law in the Old Testament. Then you have the historical books like Kings and that kind of thing, right? And then you have the prophecies like Isaiah, Ezekiel, Malachi, Zechariah, and so forth, right? So they tell them, well, the prophetic books are real, but you can't understand them. Plus, they put the vowel pointing in to throw them off. Second, they tell them the historical books they leave alone. They let that sit. And then they say the law was not the true law. So they come up with other things like, for instance, you can't eat dairy and meat at the same time, basing it on you shall not boil the kid in the mother's milk. I can't even think about it. That's so disgusting. It hurts me to even talk about that. So they say that, and um, they go into a program called building a fence around the Torah. So they add to Moses' law to keep the people from maybe breaking Moses' law. There's no provision for that, and we're not under Moses' law, but they want to play that. So, for instance, if you go to, you see, they have two types of, because of that scripture, they have two types of restaurants that are kosher. One is a dairy restaurant, the other is Fleischig for meat, right? Okay, so if you go to a dairy restaurant, you can have fish, which last time I checked, I thought that was meat. But anyway, you could have fish and you could have, I believe, eggs. And then you're into vegetables and fruits, right? So you could have strawberries and you could have salad, that kind of thing, right? Okay. You could have bread, um, which comes from grain, which is a vegetable. So they don't mind the bread, right? Um, you could have butter, which is dairy from a cow, milk. You could have milk, you could have orange juice, grape juice, Okay. So what you can have is meat, like chicken, beef, duck, any kind of meat. You can't have meat. So no, you can't have milk. No, in a dairy restaurant you could have milk. In a meat restaurant you can't have milk. So if you have coffee and you want to drink it black, everything's okay. If you want to have non-dairy creamer in your coffee, everything's okay. If you want to just put sugar in your coffee, everything's okay. If you want to put ice cubes in your coffee, everything's okay. If you want to put milk or cream in your coffee, oh no, you can't do that. You're violating kosher. There is nothing in the Bible to that. It's a joke. It's not a joke. They're serious, but it's not in the scriptures. Okay, so that's one example. The other thing they'll do in the houses is they'll have two refrigerators. They'll have one for dairy and one for meat. They'll have two sinks, one for dairy and one for meat. So they keep everything separate. You see, that's the Talmud. So the way they dealt with it, instead of cooking the books, you know, they wrote a new book, and they told them, forget the old book. You can't understand the prophets. Moses' law was written for the heathen, not for you. And the history books are the history books. Use the Talmud. And it has great things in it. Not really, like kill your enemy before he kills you. It says Yeshua wasn't the Messiah, didn't rise from the dead, wasn't the Son of God, and didn't have a father, so he was a mamzer, which means bastard. And, things like that. Okay. So they did leave the text intact. Okay. The translations of the Old Testament, that's another story. They stink. Okay. Overall, they're no good. The actual text is good. The translations are no good. Not all of them. Some of them are way better than others. Okay. But they're all in English, they're all no good. Okay. There is a work I found where they take, they'll put the words in but it's not a translation. I mean, there's works. So the Hebrew Old Testament is not not really bad. Um, Again, they have a book of Isaiah, a whole book they found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they banged it up against the Masoretic texts, the old texts, and the not so old texts. And Isaiah from the Dead Sea Scrolls, like 2,000 years ago, lines up very, very, very well with the Hebrew text. So really, it's not that bad. Okay. Here's the problem with scribes. They were writing on sometimes a scroll of a parchment, which is a lambskin. So they were writing the Bible with some type of an ink with a plume on a lambskin. Did I say they wrote it on a lambskin? Did I say I wrote it on a lambskin? Yeah, I'm making a joke. Yes, of course. I wanted to bang it in. They wrote it on a lambskin. Okay, I'm not crazy. All right, now, behold, the Lamb of God. Who's that? Yeshua. Okay, that's why he was in a manger. The Lamb of God. Who is the Word made flesh? Yeshua. Right? Right? And what did they write the word on? Lambskin. Does anybody get the connection? Okay, it's right there. Did you ever hear that one on Sunday between 9 and 11 in the morning in the buildings? I don't think so. Okay. So the way you go into getting the translation more accurate with the Hebrew is you go after the root word. That opens the door for it. So I have AI do it. Look, if I wanted to really translate it, see, the first thing you got to get away from is using Strong's and even Gesenius. Uh, they're not that bad. What Strong's did is he put a real meaning in there, but he also usually surrounded it with 4, 5, 6, or 10 other meanings. So when you looked it up, it could be this or this or this. I said it didn't help you. It doesn't really help you. Jusinius is better, and that's why they never really did any good translations with Jusinius. Um, and they never really developed the tool with Strong's numbers and things like that. But it's better than Strong's, and you could use it, but you could do better. Use the roots, get rid of the vowel pointing, use the roots, and go for secular ancient Hebrew sources like Josephus and different things, ancient sources. So that's better. Okay. Then our other witness is the Septuagint, which was done 250 AD by 70 scribes, Jewish rabbi types, took the Hebrew and put it into Greek, and they did a good job. Okay. Yeshua didn't come to Israel yet. It was 250 years later. So when they wrote it, they weren't cooking the books about the Messiah because they really didn't know much about the Messiah. So they didn't try hiding it. Okay. And it was in the Old Testament, but concealed, so you wouldn't see it unless God wanted you to see it. Okay, so the Septuagint really wasn't that bad. So they have, um, from the remnants back around the year 300, they put together a Old Testament called, it's referred to called Codex, which means book, Vaticanus, which has nothing to do with the Vatican. There was no Vatican, there was no Catholic Church at the time. The Catholics took the name away. Okay, so they took that and they put whatever remnants of scrolls and things like that they got back then, and they put it together and they constructed it in Greek. They did another one around 400 AD called Codex Sinaiticus, which also had a New Testament in Greek. So a guy named Sweet, Swete, in the 1880s came along, and he was working for Cambridge University, not the church. This guy was not a preacher in the church. He wasn't heading churches and stuff like that. He was a scholar working with the universities. Remember back then, Great Britain, the United Kingdom, whatever you want to call it, Great Britain was a very powerful, rich country. It had a lot of wealth. So he was working in the Cambridge University, which is, I guess the two top ones were Cambridge and Oxford. And I think they go back to the 1700s. So he was hired by them to put together a Septuagint. Okay. And he was striving for accuracy. A couple of spots, he wasn't so accurate. He kind of deviated. Okay. But you can pick that up. Okay. So Sweet wrote um, a New Testament. Well, he rewrote the Old Testament using predominantly Codex Vaticanus. And when he ran out of word, they didn't have words in Vaticanus. He shifted over to Codex Sinaiticus, and he may have even used Codex Alexandria, which was in the same 400s, I think. And so he would fill it up, and he wrote this in Greek. Okay, So there's basically two acceptable, or really just two old, or there's two Septuagints running around basically. One is sweet, and the other one, which the churches gravitate to, I don't know the name of it. It's a piece of junk done by the Catholic Church from the Latin, and that's what Sir Lancelot Brent used, and it's junk. And his English is even worse. I don't bother with that one at all. If it's coming from the Catholic Church, what are you banging your head against the wall for? So what I did today is I took the next great Exodus, the predominant, not the only, the predominant passage, which is Ezekiel chapter 20, starting in verse 33 to the end of the chapter, which goes up to, I think, verse 44, or I can't remember, something like that. We'll go through it today, and I had it done from the old Hebrew Masoretic, well, the old Hebrew Bible from 900, 1000 AD, translating it without the vowel point, using the roots, using secular sources. And then I also did it from, let me look, I'll give it exactly. I did it early this morning. And so I used um, I used Sweet Septuagint, so it would be the Greek witness, and which is basically like using Codex Sinaiticus and Vaticanus. And I used, because that's all the guy did was copy it from there. And then I used the older Hebrew text, but it's the same. The 900 AD Leningrad Codex is the same as the 1500s one they used. So there you have it. Okay. So we'll get into that later. Let me get through the news now. Let me check and see if I'm getting questions. So you can open this up. It's really predominantly a translation problem. Uh, how accurate are the translations in the Psalms in King James? Nothing in the King James Bible is that accurate. Okay, it's a translation, it's not a Bible. And it was done by a guy that was probably a heathen king called James, okay, or Churchianity. So it the King James is just the translation into English, and it's not very accurate. So I have not done Psalms by running these translations in there. I mean, it's something I could do, but I haven't done it. Okay. So that's what we're going to do in a little while. Let me just fly through the news with you, because it's worth understanding a couple of things about the news. It's turning America. I mean, Trump is getting squirrely. Okay, Iran is basically saying Trump surrendered. It looks that way. Um, Look, there's a lot of reasons we could talk about why Trump surrendered. Congress and the War Powers Act, they don't want him declaring war. Well, okay, maybe. Trump didn't want to see Iran destroy the oil wells and refineries of Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia. Likely, possible. Okay. Um, Trump didn't want to see Israel and Iran get into it because it would have just been a matter of the first week or so. Israel would have destroyed the water desalination plants and the electrical grid and the bridges and other things inside Iran. Um, and Trump, that's the prophecy. Those things are likely going to happen. to fulfill the prophecy of all the people leaving. And Trump is looking for a Nobel Peace Prize at great cost to America and Israel. He doesn't care. Wants that thing for his ego. It's all about him. It's not about, yeah, he wants to make America great again because he has all his assets there and he lives there. But that's about it. All right. So we've been giving him a sufficient plate of toss. We've been demon tossing him and other leaders. And I think he's scared to death of being in a war without his counsel from the powers of the air, the unclean spirits. And that's what's really been giving him the fear. Okay. He doesn't know what to do. Like the little old woman who lives in a shoe. And there's more to what I'm saying than most people are going to understand. Very transactionally more. So Trump is scared, okay? And he's giving them a deal that doesn't benefit America, nor does it really benefit Israel or anybody for that matter. He did go on to say that the 300 billion he's going to give to Iran for reconstruction, war reparations is the word, okay? War reparations is if you're receiving them, you're often the winner. But 300 billion. He says the Gulf states will pay that. Now, if I'm right about this, what'll happen is the Gulf states will pay it probably over 10 years, which is what it's going to take to rebuild. And that means it's $30 billion a year. And if you're talking about Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman, you're talking about 6 or 7 countries, probably 7. If I don't know, if Jordan will pay, maybe. You got 7 countries. Each country's coming up with 30 billion. So it's what, 4.5 billion a year per country, and they could do that. They're not happy about it, and the 300 billion may not hold. It may wind up being 100 billion. It may not go. The chances of a permanent ceasefire ever happening are, I don't want to say zero because, but in my mind, it's zero. I'd give it on a 10 scale, 10 being the best of 1 or a half. A half, not even a 1. Iran's not going to agree to what Trump wants with the nuclear. Iran's not going to concede anything with their proxies, the Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthi. They're not going to give any of that up, okay? They're not going to limit their ballistic missile program. They're not going to even talk about domestic policy. Trump basically left the Iranian civilian population in the lurch. The Iranians are going to do whatever they want to these people for years to come. Okay? They're going to rebuild avidly during the 60 days of negotiations, which will be non conclusive, and they'll definitely, Iran will push for extensions. I would say Trump will give them at least 2 months. At least. So the only thing to do is give Trump more doses of what's scaring him. Get my drift? Serve some endless tossed salad and a, s- a main course of a whole enchilada. Give him the tossed salad and the whole enchilada. Not only him, Iran, Israel, let them all have it. And they'll all wander around like the little old woman in the shoe and not know what to do because their consiglieres are being blocked from guiding them and leading them and directing them, and they're going to go pull their hair out. And Trump again said that if it wasn't for him, there would be no Israel. Bad things are going to happen to Trump and possibly America for that. Okay? That shows a complete lack of fear of God and a megalomaniac personality disorder like Napoleon Bonaparte or Attila the Hun or Caesar or something like that. It's just really gone off the deep end. There's an Israel because God wants an Israel, and Trump is just ridiculous. He will America will turn against Israel. There's no doubt about it. Okay. It says it in Jeremiah 50:51. They will do evil in your sight. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Do I think it gets to the point where America um, attacks Israel? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it will do more bad things to Israel politically and diplomatically than it will with dropping bombs on Israel. I don't think it'll come to that. But I don't know for sure. I don't think so. But I could be wrong. Netanyahu is not going to give up his war in Lebanon. Let me explain this to you. If he listens to Trump and says, okay, come on, soldiers, out of Lebanon, we're done. There's no more war. Then the Supreme Court immediately says, you're coming to court next Thursday. And then he can't turn around and say, I can't come because I got an emergency with the war. And that's what he's been doing for 3 years to stay out of court so the court case doesn't conclude. So that's why Trump is talking about Netanyahu going to jail and stuff like that. Herzog doesn't, that's the president, who's really like in a power mode, like a secretary of state, but he's an elected official, so Netanyahu can't fire him or anything like that. Okay. He's the one that could issue a pardon. He could pardon Netanyahu, but he so far has not done it. I don't think he wants Netanyahu around. They want to break Netanyahu up, you know, his control. So, what do I think's going to happen? I think it's almost perfect that there's going to be no signing Friday. Uh, Trump and his people may go to Geneva. That's fine. They can go to Geneva. They could go to Johannesburg. They could go to Antarctica. I don't care where they go. It doesn't mean that there's going to be a signing of anything because the Iranians just aren't going to go. We've seen this play out before. Okay. It's just not going to go. And the indications we're getting is that they have no intention of signing this on Friday, apparently. They want Israel to completely stop attacking Hezbollah. Netanyahu says we've got them down to 8% of their missiles from 150,000. That's 12,000 missiles. Check my math. That's a lot of missiles. There's a lot of work left to be done. Now that counts rockets. So not all of them are going to have the ability to hit more than maybe 5 or 10 miles into Israel. Okay. So by keeping them out of the south, they're up to the Litani River. That's about 17 to 18 miles. You know, the river meanders. So it's 17, 18 miles from the border. That knocks out most of the rockets. The Katyushas are capable, the best of the Katyushas go 18 miles. So Katyushas are off the table. So they need more sophisticated missiles, okay? Their anti-tank missiles are shoulder fired, and those things are, like a mile or something like that. They're not going to be useful. If they're right at the border, they could shoot them from Lebanon into Israel, try to hit vehicles, try to hit IDF, try to hit this, try to hit that. Okay. Um, but that's one of the many reasons we're keeping them out of Israel. Mortars don't go that far, so they can't hit us with mortars. Artillery won't work. They can't hit us. They cannot hit us with artillery. So the only thing they could hit us with is the ballistic missiles, which I don't really know how many they have. And this is the big caveat, the amount of missiles they have is nowhere near as important as to how many missile launches they have. And when they launch a missile, Israel will rapidly, you know, very super duper rapidly go in and do a strike and try to destroy the missile launcher. So I don't know how many missile launches they have, but it's still a problem. Okay. So, um, so Iran's going to say, well, this is our deal. And then uh, Witkoff and Hegseth and Vance and Trump are going to say that's not in the deal. And it's not. But they're going to say, well, if you want to deal with us, you got to put it in the deal. This has got to be a full ceasefire, and Lebanon is our puppet, and they're defending us. And, we need to get them off the hook. You got to end it. And Netanyahu's not going to listen to Trump because if he does, the Supreme Court's going to drag him into court, and then his trial's going to continue, and he is likely going to be convicted. If that was not the case, he wouldn't have been fighting against it so much. If he's convicted, they suspend. Well, they end he's no longer, once they say you're guilty, even before sentencing, he's not prime minister. I don't think they would even have him as acting prime minister, so they would have an immediate election. Uh, Probably Herzog would be running the show for very few days, and they'd have a new election in a matter of a few days, maybe a day or two. And somebody else would be prime minister, and then the court would sentence Netanyahu and be done with that curse on Israel. It very likely could happen. So he needs to have a war. But who's he going to fight the war with? There's nothing going on with the Hezbollah. They just hold up down there. The Hamas and Gaza, they just hold up. Syria's not fighting with us. Iraq's not fighting with us. The Houthis are, what's he going to do with the Houthis? Send planes down there, that's not going to work for him. So what can he do? Well, I don't know who he's going to be able to get into a war with, but looks like he's run out of steam. Okay. So at this point, I'd say it's highly unlikely anything's going to happen Friday. Right now, they did seem to stop. Now it's coming out that getting the naval mines out of the Persian Gulf is likely going to take a month. Even with modern minesweepers and modern technology, it's probably going to take a month. The other thing is that Iran not only is not going to sign the deal, Iran said they're going to attack Israel if we don't get out of South Lebanon and stop fighting over there. And we have no intention of doing that. What Iran wants to do is save Hezbollah so they can use them as leverage against us again. So if we fight against Iran, not only does Iran retaliate, Hezbollah retaliates, and the idea is try to get us to use up our missiles like the Iron Dome and the others. Okay, that's why they want Hezbollah. So what Netanyahu wants to do, which is actually good for Israel, is to get rid of the Hezbollah, and it it helps. So it looks like not only is there not going to be a deal, they're probably going to start launching at Israel. See, they've rebuilt. Nincompoop. Trump's a nincompoop. He doesn't understand, and he's scared. He's scared of what? He's scared of some people giving him the tossed salad and the whole enchilada, and he has no consiglieres to talk to, no powers of the air, no unclean spirits. So if he wasn't an espot, he wouldn't be in office. Are you kidding me? You believe that, Come on. Uh, the So he's just playing the let's make a deal, game again, which people in Israel are making fun of it. Trump is not very popular in Israel. It could help Netanyahu in an election, but not if he's convicted criminal. But they're really disliking Trump. Uh, Trump basically walked away from Iran without physically turning around and walking out. Okay. He's letting them rebuild, he's getting them finances, he's not hindering them in any way, shape, or what did Trump get out of this deal? Nothing except Iran stopped fighting. But you see, Netanyahu and everybody that lives in the Middle East that follows this stuff knows that Iran's going to just come back at everybody stronger. They're waiting to build more missiles, more missile launchers, more missile cities, better fortification, get more radar set up, and they'll start up again. They're not going to stop. I don't know if they really got what it takes to start up with Israel again because Israel's going to get to them very painful. painfully. They don't want to see 25 jets coming in every day, dropping bombs all over the place, or really 2, 3 times a day. Their missile cities can be fortified. Did they fortify their water desalinators? It's possible. How would you do it? Well, you'd have to build, like 8 or 10 foot thick concrete building over the water desalinator. But you see, it's got to have lines to get water out of the ocean, out of the Persian Gulf, and you just blow the lines up. So it's limited. And then you got the electric grid, and then you got the bridges and the trains. So Israel has, a week of targets, maybe 10 days. It's not going to be enjoyable for the Israeli people, including me, to have the missiles coming in from Iran and the drones and Hezbollah trying. The Houthis will try and then will retaliate, and then Iran's going to say they're closing the Persian Gulf. The Houthis will say they're closing the Red Sea. And then I don't know what Trump will do. But the other states may actually do something called the siege, which is already in place, and then put a big siege on us. The siege might not last for a day or a week. It may be a long one. They may not, want to. I don't know what Iran's going to go, and the siege is going to come, and the siege is here in part, and something's going to push it forward. And I think that something is more likely the daughter of Babylon getting busted up or getting weakened. Well, it's pretty weak now. See, I can't give you the precise timing because the scriptures doesn't give it to us. And we're not supposed to know the day of the hour, just the season, but we're in the season. It is season. So what do we do? Well, we watch and we wait, but Trump has no concept of what he's doing anymore. He's, we like to think he's got meaning and purpose and drive and determination behind his actions, but he's resorting to constant lying. And that tells me that he who loveth and maketh a lie. He loves lying. And he's doing it every day with the war. And the Iranians are taking it as him retreating and trying to save face, but afraid of them, and they're going to push harder and harder. So this is far from over. Trump says, I suggested to Israel to let Syria take care of Hezbollah. To be honest with you, I think they would do a better job. He wants to hand Israel's security to Al Qaeda, ISIS guys. I'm reading this from a commentator. Trump displays his ignorance of Middle East geopolitics, telling reporters that he suggested to Israel that we let Syria take care of Hezbollah. If the Sunni jihadists that now rule Syria, see, Hezbollah is Shiite, they're Sunni, but they're jihadists, but they do not get along, that rule Syria entered Lebanon, to take care of Hezbollah, as Trump suggested, there would be a massacre of the Shiites, the Christians, and the Druze. Trump should know better. He should. He wanted to do, I'll tell you why he wanted that. He figured he'd give some weapons to Syria. We'd give some weapons to Syria, give them a lot of intel, and let them go wipe out Hezbollah because they're bloodthirsty. And they would kill Hezbollah. And then Iran can't say anything about the ceasefire because Trump just says, I'm not, Israel's not doing it. They're out. The Syria guy's doing it. So the first problem is that Iran would start putting missiles into Syria. A lot of problems. They've killed Christians, Shiites, Druze, and Alawites in Syria, and kidnapped them and captured the women, the children. They're pretty evil. They would need to be armed, and then after you armed them, it wouldn't be a matter of disarming them. They wouldn't give up their weapons. So there was an article, and it reads like this: American intelligence and the CIA listened to, in other words, they eavesdropped phone calls of senior Iranians and concluded that Iran does not intend to comply with its nuclear commitments, even if a final uh, agreement is signed. So, what you got going on here is they're telling Iran, hey, we're tapping your phones. So now the Iranians aren't going to talk on the phones anymore. Nice of them to do that. Trump warned Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, if you continue to oppose the agreement with Iran, you will be fired from your positions. Now we're being told this: Washington secretly approved for Qatar to transfer funds to Tehran in exchange for um, freedom of navigation in the Straits of Hormuz. And um, so that some of the seized money that Iran had was in the Qatar banks. So Trump is coming out now, had them release some of the money to Iran to get them to do the ceasefire. And now Iran is going to go back on Trump and say, but we always said part of the ceasefire is the Lebanon war stops with Israel. And Trump's going to say, we never put it in there. Iran's going to say, but we did. And Trump's going to say, we didn't. We never agreed to it. And Iran says, well, if you're not going to agree to it, we're not going to do a deal. Trump's not going to say, send the money back, because they're going to tell Trump, yeah, I will send the money back, Donald. Why don't you take a long walk on a short pier? That is never going to happen. So they play Trump for a sucker because they see fear in Trump. Okay. Trump did get the other countries to say they were going to relieve sanctions if this thing goes through. Uh, Germany, France, England, those are the three that pushed the snapback sanctions from the United Nations to come back on Iran. Uh, said they're ready to lift the sanctions if the deal goes through. We're also picking up Trump recognized the Iran's right to enrich uranium. They just want to keep it to a low level. And this eavesdropping on the phones was probably saying, yeah, we'll cut the UN inspector off from coming in and we'll enrich it at 70% or 80%, not 3%, and they won't know any different, that kind of thing. They're taking Trump to the cleaners, that's all. And Trump's walking into the traps with them because he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't have the fortitude of Netanyahu to hang in there and have a fight. He doesn't have it. It's just not there, okay? And it's not going to be there. He doesn't have that kind of background. Netanyahu, when he was in the military, was in special forces. Um, Trump was never in the military. He's doesn't, you know, I don't know what his problem is, but he got a problem with it. Um, they get like Hitler. It's pretty common. They start firing the generals because the generals tell them, we know more than you do, either indirectly by their actions or directly. And Trump's sitting there saying, well, if you knew more than me, you'd be president. Get rid of this guy. And they start firing him. He's already threatening, Hegseth. And so the generals get the boot. And then what happens? Well, they get new generals and they keep shifting the generals around, and they take 2 stars and they make them 3 stars, and 3 stars become 4 stars, and they command loyalty. So they put generals in place that won't do the right thing. They'll do what Trump wants. That's usually the end of the war. I'm sure the generals told Hitler not to go into Russia and be fighting in Europe at the same time, but he didn't listen. This, what is his name? Starmer, the prime minister in UK, they're trying to get rid of, or they were. He didn't leave. Is banning people under 16 years old from being on social media or using social media or something with social media ban. Uh, they're going to be banned from TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, but not WhatsApp or Signal. So I, yeah, I'm thinking that they'll be able to access these places, but won't be able to have an account. So they'll be able to read, but not write. I'm guessing at that. I don't know. It'd be awfully hard to keep them from going there and browsing, you know. He could make it that in with IP addresses coming from the UK that you can't browse these places. You have to log in, and you can't have anybody log in that's under 16. But how are they going to check age? What is he? It's a big elaborate mess. I don't know what he's up to. He probably have make it work somewhat, you know. The U.S. Okay, so Trump says again that without the United States, Israel would have ceased to exist. Mike Huckabee, who's probably not much longer for this world in terms of Trump, said without Israel, there would be no United States. Well, I don't think Trump is going to like that one. He might, drop on Huckabee, and Huckabee says, well, look, Donald, I got to keep these people here liking me, you know. Right now, they all dislike you. So, but Trump is probably not very interested in that. The Iranian Qatam al Anbiya command, this is Iran military command, threatened Israel. The army of the terrorist Zionist enemy has violated the ceasefire in southern Lebanon 84 times over the past 2 days after the American president declared the end of the war. And it continues to commit crimes and mass massacres against the oppressed Lebanese people. The oppressed Lebanese people. No, the Hezbollah that keeps trying to kill us and shoot missiles into daycare centers and civilians' houses and stuff like that. That's who they're protecting. And the Americans are saying from onset that they never put Lebanon and Israel in the deal. Iran's inserting it, not America. But since Trump is so fearful and doesn't know what to do, and Iran wants the war over in Israel, he'll throw Israel under the bus. He doesn't care. But what does he do if Israel refuses? if the army of the Zionist entity, the child murderers, does not cease its actions in southern Lebanon, it should expect a harsh response from the mighty Iranian armed forces. You see, the emboldened IRGC, which Trump has emboldened, just released a threat to attack Israel if it continues to strike Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. The guy named Yechiel Leiter, Israel's ambassador to the U.S. Okay, this is our, Huckabee in reverse, so to speak, right? We remain in southern Lebanon to protect the people of Israel like any other self respecting country would. So there's a definite standing up against Trump, which Trump, likes people standing up against him like a hole in the head. Netanyahu said he's not pulling out. This guy says he's not pulling out. Hegseth and Rubio said it's not in the deal. They don't have to pull out. And that's what I think Trump got mad about, because Trump wants to get Netanyahu to pull out. And that's very dangerous to Israel. Very, very, very dangerous. And that's what Iran wants. They want more leverage over Israel. Now, this is in the news, but is, I believe, being suppressed. Jersey City is in New Jersey. It's a city in New Jersey, not far from New York, New York City. 5 women had been attacked by guys on a little moped. 2 guys on a moped came up to the women, got their attention. These, they came up on a moped. They approached 5 different women in one night or one day. And sorry to tell you this, but they threw sulfuric acid in their faces. Now, this takes place in other countries, and I don't really have to tell you who does this, do I? Who wants to humble the infidels? So, um, when you get sulfuric acid on your face, number one, you could be blind. If you have sunglasses or glasses on, you're likely not going to be blind. Okay. Or if it hit here, it didn't hit, it may not get you. What it does is it creates tremendously bad scarring on the skin of the face, and it deforms the woman to the point where she might not want to walk out of the house. The longer the sulfuric acid stays on your face, the deeper it gets. So theoretically, if it happened to you and you had a bottle of water and you started throwing it on your face and washing it off, you might just have some redness and superficial burns, and it could clear up, and with a little makeup it probably wouldn't be detectable. Hold on a second, I need to see what this is. I'm getting idiot reactions here. Hold on a minute. I don't know what this is. I don't know what in the world this is. I'll ignore it. Okay. This is in India. This has been done. It's been done in other places in Muslim lands where they do this. I have had no feedback on what leads they have with these two guys doing it. Now, when you're dealing with sulfuric acid, you got to take into account what purity it has. They probably had very high purity. They probably had it in a glass container because sulfuric acid won't burn through glass. They have to be very careful that they didn't get it on themselves. So they probably went on the sidewalk or got close to the women and they said, hey, and then boom. I don't know if they got themselves, if they had rubber gloves on, it would insulate them tremendously from it on their hands. And if they had sunglasses, they wouldn't have to worry about it getting in their eyes or something. But it's to throw acid off of a moving or from a moped, which is a small motorcycle. Uh, I don't know what kind of logic there is to do that. You have to be pretty crazy to risk it yourself. You know, there's lots of weapons you could work with, but they could wind up being weapons to yourself. So this is going to create a lot of fear. If they start doing it in other locations, it'll be uh, a lot more fear. I don't know what women could do to protect themselves. Definitely wear big sunglasses, you know, but not much. There is dissension in the IRGC. There are people in the IRGC that don't want Iran signing any kind of deal with Israel, with America. They want to go all out against America. They don't want any deals. Okay. So we don't know to what extent this is, but there are people that are running stories about this and they're trying to get clickbait and make you think that they're, having machine gun fights in the government offices about this or riding around on the street killing the guys who don't agree with them. And nothing like that has happened. You couldn't be further from the truth. We don't know how bad the dissension is amongst them, but there is definitely division amongst them about this, but it is not taken to violence in the street, contrary to some of these guys that report on the news that want sensationalism and they tout this as if it's real serious. And it is going on, but it's not that, it's not reached violence. This Khomeini character could be out of action all this time and probably is. So there's probably no final say coming from this Khomeini character because he's supposed to be laying around in comas and bed and he might not be functional. He's probably not functional. Uh, So I don't know what all uh, the extent of this, but I think it's not what a lot of people are making it out to be. And they're just trying to get people to click on their websites, and that's it. It's bad, but not that bad. And this could definitely be a factor in why they're not, um, you know, going through with this deal. It doesn't look like I in my mind, I think there's almost no chance that there's going to be a deal day after tomorrow. Today's Wednesday. So Iran is going to probably come out with a statement on Thursday or maybe Friday. We're the closest to a deal we've ever been. This is what they've already said, but we're not yet there. We have some issues that are not resolved. The more weakness Trump shows, the more they want from Trump. And sadly, the more Trump gives them. He's scared to death about being in a war without having his advisors, his spiritual powers of the air advisors, okay? And he is scared to death about that, okay? His problem is Iran's not scared to death about that, and he doesn't know how the heck he's going to go into a fight with Iran if he doesn't have his unclean spiritual consiglieres counseling him as to what to do. Tough luck, Trump. I'll be right back. Get some air conditioning here. Okay, Bible time. Next great Exodus. Going to read this translated from two of the ancient witnesses to these verses. The verses we're going to cover today are Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 33 to 44. So I'm going to start using the ancient Hebrew manuscripts for the Old Testament, go back to 900, 1000 AD, knocked off the vowel pointing, using the roots, get the meaning using secular language translation sources, old ones. No churchianity, seminary translation advice. Okay, verse 33. I'm going to read you this, and then we're going to do the Septuagint. Translated. As I live, declares the sovereign Jehovah, surely with a mighty hand, with an I had to put the sacred holy names in, with an outstretched arm, and with outpoured wrath, I will reign over you. I will bring you out from the peoples and gather you from the lands where you were scattered with a mighty hand, with an outstretched arm, and with outpoured wrath. That is Jeremiah 30, verse 11, as I see it. Most likely, that's what that is. I will bring you into the wilderness of the people. That would not be Israel. And there I will enter into judgment with you. Well, wait, yeah, judgment with you face to face. So, see how helpful this is? Face to face makes me think that the glory of God of Israel, Michael, is going to be in the wilderness with them, with the tabernacle, just like he was with Moses and Aaron. Or else, how could I explain the face to face? Jehovah's not coming down to earth for that. Got it? Verse 36. Just as, and also it'll give the people a good fear of God when the glory of God of Israel is there, See, you can go against the Lord and suffer his wrath, or you could go for the Lord with the Lord lovingly and enjoy his blessings. There really isn't a middle ground. Just as I entered into judgment with your ancestors in the wilderness of the land of Egypt, so I will enter into judgment with you, declares the sovereign Jehovah. See, he actually says it. So expect the tabernacle, which is portable, and expect the glory of God of Israel. Now, should we also expect the two witnesses to be there? I don't know. Maybe one. We read of Elijah training the Levites, so Enoch could be there. Apostle John could be there too. Don't know. I don't see Elijah there though, so you can see somewhere else. So. But the two witnesses are both in the Jerusalem area with the siege to burn up the enemies. That's in Zechariah 12, verse 6. You see it plain as day. See how much clearer things are getting? That's why I'm going to write this book. I'm trying to get it together, but maybe doing the broadcast is just a lot for me, but I'm going to try to do this. And I will make you pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant. Passing under the rod, the shepherd with the pen, he brings the sheep in. He stands by the entrance with his rod and looks at them going in to make sure, like, he doesn't get goats or a little coyote or a little wolf or some bad thing, right? A dog, I don't know. I will purge from among you the rebels and those who transgress against me. It sounds like they'll take a dirt nap in the wilderness, not unlike what happened in Egypt, right? I will bring them out of the land where they dwell as foreigners, but they shall not enter the land of Israel. Then you will know that I am Jehovah. It says in the Hebrew, Ani Jehovah, saying I, Jehovah. To make it sensible in English, you would say I am. Okay, Jehovah. As for you, O house of Israel, thus said, the word is Yisrael, like a yud, a Y sound, You could say Israel, we know what that is. Okay. Thus says the sovereign Jehovah, go serve every one of you his idols now, and hereafter, if you will not listen to me, but my holy name, you shall no longer profane with your gifts and your idols. So, okay, this is where I start dwelling on this. Is an unclean spirit an idol? Well, idol usually means a three-dimensional inanimate object, so not really. But worshiping an unclean spirit is the same thing as an idol because it's not the same thing. Can you make an idol like churches teach this, you buy a new car and you get up on Sunday morning or Saturday morning and you get outside and you hose it down and you polish it and you put Q-tips inside by the the windshield and the dashboard, and you polish your hubcaps, and you do everything short of licking the car clean, right? Uh, is that making an idol out of your car? It is not. If you got there and you got down on your knees in front of your new Cadillac Escalade or something, and you started bowing to it and said, "Oh, Cadillac Escalade, I worship thee, my God," that would be it. Okay. If you go up in a building on Sunday morning from 9 to 11 in the morning, and they have a little stage in the front, maybe just this high, and they have a wooden cross there, and you go up there and you kneel down in front of the cross and start crying and praying, is that idolatry? Oh yeah. You have a three-dimensional object that's not animated, and it's a dead thing, and you're crying and kneeling down to it. Yeah. You're in idolatry. But you're not going to the cross and saying, "Oh, thou wooden cross, bless me." No, but you're still kneeling down to it. That's your problem. As for you, O house of Israel, thus says the sovereign Jehovah, go serve every one of you his idols now and hereafter, if you will not listen to me, but my holy name you shall no longer profane with your gifts and your idols. For on my holy mountain, that's Mount Zion, Mount Zion, the mountain height of Israel. See, that mountain's coming back. He's going to bring it back. And when that comes up, I have a feeling the Dome of the Rock and the Wailing Wall and all that are going to fall apart because they'll be at the base of the mountain, I believe. Declares, see, I don't think the mountain is going to be built like this, like a pillar. It's going to be built, like most mountains, a broad base and comes up, right? So the broad base would mean goodbye, Dome of the Rock and Alas Mosque and all that. Okay. For on my holy mountain, the mountain height of Israel, declares the sovereign Jehovah, there all the house of Israel, all of them in the land, shall serve me. There I will accept them. All of them in the land are going to serve him. See, the falling away is going to come later. And there I will require your contributions and the first fruits of your offerings with all your sacred gifts. Okay. Where does he say he will accept them? There, Israel, I will accept them. That's why I had to be here. One of the many reasons I had to be here for this. Okay, 41. As a soothing, now you try to get the churches to agree to a statement that says that God accepts the people in Israel and see how they throw you out of the church. Try that. As a soothing aroma. A soothing aroma. Isn't that very graphic? Like, what is a soothing aroma? To me, what is several soothing aromas? I don't know. If I walk by a coffee shop making really, really nice coffee and I smell the coffee being whatever burned or whatever, or baking the beans, or I like that. I mean, there's a lot of smells that are really good. I think he maybe also would mean incense could be good. Okay. As a soothing aroma, I will accept you when I bring you out from the peoples and gather you from the lands where you have been scattered. Bring you out from the people and gather you from the lands where you have been scattered, and I will manifest my holiness among you in the sight of the nations. Part of this is the fact that the next temple comes down from heaven in Ezekiel 37, the last three verses. We learned that. I've covered that with you guys multiple times. Verse 42. And you will know that I am Jehovah when I bring you into the land of Israel and the country that I swore with an uplifted hand to give to your ancestors. There you will remember your ways and all your deeds by which you defiled yourselves, and you will loathe yourselves for all the evils that you have committed. And now I don't think the people that have been believers, that are in Israel because they're believers, and Israelis that have been believers are going to go through that. You probably already went through that over the years. You've been a believer in a way. And whoops. Oh, my iPad's doing the spin on me again. Bad iPad. Okay. I'm up to the last verse 44. And you will know that I am Jehovah, it would say Ani Jehovah, when I deal with you for my name's sake, not according to your evil ways, nor according to your corrupt deeds, O house of Israel, declares the sovereign Jehovah. Okay, so this is found a lot in let's see. It says all the Israelites are going to come out of the land they're in for his name's sake, but not all are going to come into Israel. They're going to stop in the wilderness of the people of the nations people, and then enter the bond of the covenant, pass under the rod, enter the bond of the covenant. Then they'll go in. I have no idea how long we'll stay in this wilderness. My guess is it's going to be rather brief. I would say maybe 40 days or something of that nature. But I could be wrong. It could be a year or two. I don't know. Would it be fun out there in the wilderness with either the apostles or the witnesses or some combination thereof and the glory of God of Israel and meeting all the other Israelites and true believers? And yeah, I think it'd be a lot of fun. you know. Okay. Um, I imagine the glory of God of Israel would do the same thing. If it's hot during the day, he'd make a cloud over everybody. And if it was cold at night, he'd make like a fire over everybody. So you probably wouldn't need to probably be pleasant weather during the day and the night. Uh, you know, just read about the experiences of the children of Israel in the wilderness with how he brought them the birds and all that. Okay. Now we're going to do this from the Sweet SWETE. Okay. I don't think his name is something like Barkley Henry or something sweet. I just call him Sweet. It's referred to in seminary circles as Sweets Septuagint. Well, Sweet Septuagint's good enough. Okay. We'll start in verse 33. You'll see it's going to be nice and not that different. That you get another perspective. This is how I want to do it when I write the book. I want to have two. um, translations, and then my footnotes. Okay. As I live, saith Jehovah Elohim, surely with an almighty hand and with a high arm, that'd be an arm uplifted, I guess, and with outpouring wrath, I will reign over you. It's very clear. Verse 34, and I will bring you out from the peoples and will gather you from the lands where you were scattered with a mighty hand, with a high arm, and with outpoured wrath. Pretty similar. Now we're in verse 35. And I will bring you into the wilderness of the peoples, and there will I plead. The word plead is probably better translated judge, okay? And I will judge with you face to face. Even as I pleaded, I would say judge, but maybe plead. God wants to get him to stop. So they used to plead it, like when he loaded them up with the birds and, stuff like that. Even as I pleaded with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt, so will I judge you. See, it says pleaded and then judge. So the judge is definitely in there. Very similar to what happened, okay? Saith Jehovah Elohim. And I will cause you to pass under the rod. Make sure you're part of Israel, and I will bring you in by number. Wow, that's interesting. I will bring you in by number into the covenant. That's interesting. I will bring you in number. Maybe he just means in bulk, large amount. That's what I think he means. Okay. And let me get back here. Now I'm in 38, Ezekiel 20, verse 38. And I will separate from among you the ungodly and the rebels, for I will bring them out of their place of sojourning. In other words, he's bringing them out of the nation they were scattered into, but they shall not enter into the land of Israel, and you shall know Ani Jehovah, I am Jehovah. There it is. So the bad ones aren't going to be in Israel, but you got a 70-year period till the millennium, and during that time, there's going to be a falling away. Okay. Now, I don't know who's going to fall away, but, the next generation of children growing up could be falling away because, could I really imagine you all falling away? No, because you know what Satan's like. You wouldn't, I don't imagine you would do it. But the children that grow up with everything really easy, maybe they do, but maybe not. If they grow up right, it shouldn't happen if you raise them right. So I'm not sure who it all is, but could be new converts that come in. I don't know, but there's a falling away. Okay. And as you, O house of Israel, and as to you, O house of Israel, saith Jehovah Elohim. I like Jehovah Elohim better than the sovereign word and stuff like that. So I'll clean that up. Go cast away every one his idols. And hereafter, if you will not hearken to me, yet profane no more my holy name with your gifts and your devices. For upon my, what's like a device? I think like they sell the treif in Passover to a non-Jew, and they don't really do anything with it, and then they buy it back from them when Passover's over. Silly things like this, stupid stuff. For upon my holy mountain, upon the high mountain of Israel, saith Jehovah Elohim, there shall all the house of Israel serve me entirely in the land. Serve me entirely in the land. And there will I accept them, and there will I look for your first fruits and the first fruits of your offerings, saith, with all your holy things. I will accept you with a sweet smelling savor when I bring you out from the people and receive you out of the countries wherein you have been scattered, and I will be sanctified in you in the sight of the heathen nations. It says nations, it means non-Israelites, the heathens, in other words. And you shall know that I am Jehovah when I bring you into the land of Israel, the land concerning which I lifted up my hand to give it to your fathers. And there you shall remember your ways and your devices wherewith you defiled yourselves, and you shall loathe yourselves for all your wickedness. And you shall know Ani Jehovah when I have done this to you. Done this to you for my name's sake, and not according to your wicked ways, nor according to your corrupt devices, because of, O house of Israel, Jehovah, saith Jehovah. That's pretty interesting. Okay. Let me try to get us in, do this for Jeremiah 30, verse 11, I think it is. Be a minute. Almost there. Okay. For I am, this is Jeremiah 30:11. For this one is coming out of um, the Hebrew text, the old Hebrew stuff, the text. For I am with you. It's the same. The old and the new is pretty much the same. It doesn't matter really. For I am with you, declares Jehovah, to have to save you. That would be to Yahshua or Yeshua you. So it's really salvation you, but save salvation. Okay. Save you, for I will make. See, salvation you doesn't work in English. Save you does, right? Um, to save you, for I will make a full end among all the nations where I have scattered you there. But of you I will not make a full end, and I will discipline you in just measure, and I will by no means leave you unpunished. Okay. So when the nations are destroyed, then the people are likely going to leave. They're going to want to come to Israel. And you read about the kings and the other people, the princes, and carrying them and transporting them and bringing them to Israel as an offering unto the Lord. So they saw the wrath of the Lord and that sobered them up. See, take another example, daughter of Babylon with over 6 million Jews, more than it. They have almost as many Jews in America as they do in Israel. So it's just slightly less. So they don't come out until the trouble starts when the daughter of Babylon, America is falling apart, then they come out. The same with the nations. That's how he's going to do it. They'll have the everlasting life. Yeshua will appear in the clouds, and that's when they get saved. They get that's the saving them. Okay. The salvationing them. The saved word leads one to believe in, uh, a geopolitical military save, but it's a salvation save. So I've got to address this. See, it gets overwhelming for me doing this all by myself. It gets really hard, but I'll have to start forcing myself. I would much rather have, the Lord give me a crew. Maybe that'll still happen. I'll get a crew and I can have people helping me with it. So I don't have to do every single thing by myself. That's tedious. After I get the translations and I get them ironed out the way I want them to be, okay, because you can't translate the Bible unless you know the prophecy scriptures, unless you have correct Bible prophecy. And AI is not capable of that. So I've got to monitor it, read it, moderate it, change it, clean it up, make it fit. Okay. Then I've got to do the commentary, we could call it that, discuss it, the footnotes, whatever. And I could do that with voice I could input it with voice, and it's going to have all kinds of typos and grammatical errors, and then cut and paste it and put it into AI, or get AI to work with Google Docs and clean up my grammar and my typos. And that'll be a tremendous time saving for me. So maybe I can get there quickly. I don't know. See, the problem is I get up about 5 this morning. I go to work, and then I study. What am I going to do today? And, translations and the news and blah, blah, blah. And then I do the live stream. And then, if I was 25 years old, it would knock me out too. Because you feel it in here. It's not your arms and your legs and your back that get tired. It's your brain, it's you're really thinking, and you're thinking hard. So you got to pray for me. Got to pray for me. Things are going well. Thank you for the prayers for my pursuit of the public and private welfare system. It seems to be going well. So keep praying for that, okay? So I need the support from them, because it's getting me and my wife down, because she had the stroke. So we need, if we have people from the government cleaning the house, then we don't have to pay to have that done. So it puts more money in our budget. And we might be able to get people here a lot of time here, and they could help my wife go shopping and push the cart around and carry the stuff from the car into the house, and you know could have them cook some of the time and things like that. So we're trying to get that. And then I also am told that I'll be able to get some special glasses that help people with me. They're electric usually, with batteries, and they help people like me see better. And they run usually a low of $2,000 to $7,000. But I believe they'll buy some of this for me. They, what the eye doctor told me is they'll evaluate you as to what they think would help you the best, and then they'll get that for you. It might be more than one item, it might be two. One for distance, one for close. So that'll be helpful, I think. I think. Uh, we're also looking into hydrogen inhalation machines. This is a relatively new thing that's breaking. Hydrogen inhalation machines. It has a cannula, which is a little plastic thing that has two little rods about, I don't know, about a half inch, maybe an inch, and you put them in your nose, just like what hospitals use. And it puts hydrogen, 99.99% hydrogen in there. It gets the hydrogen out of water, but you got to use distilled water. So our water is hard water, so it probably would break the machine over a brief period of time. So the distilled water they sell it in Israel. It's not expensive. A gallon would probably last a month or 2 months or more. Because you're just usually using it to get a full dose of the hydrogen, using 1 or 2 tablespoons of water, or teaspoons, very little. H2O, two molecules of hydrogen and then one of oxygen. So you get water has a lot of hydrogen in it. Okay. So that's what we're working on now. Um, I don't know what it's going to do. It's pretty useful for people that have had strokes. So it's predominantly for my wife. I don't know what it'll do for me. I'm not sure I'll use it or not use it. I don't know. Uh, um, so things are moving okay for that, you know. Um, that'll cut my budget down, so I maybe have it easier here. It's very hard. We, it's food is so expensive here. It also will cut my electricity bill down because they'll give me a break in the rate, and also the property tax I got to pay for the landlord, that'll give me a break. And the um, what else do I get reduced? Water bill gets reduced. I could already ride the buses and the trains for free because of my age, so that's not going to help. They already have it. I could use the light rail or the railroad or the buses for free. Um, I get some benefits I think will increase in terms of going to a bank or a post office or a government office without having to do much waiting. I think it's like go to the front of the line kind of thing. That'll happen. I think I can get a handicap parking for my wife, well, for the car, but I don't think it'll benefit my wife unless I'm in the car, because I think you have to be in the car to use it. And what else? So that's good. So thank you for the prayers. Keep the prayers coming on that. Help with the public and private welfare system here. It's a pretty socialistic system, so it's I'll have a lot of things open up for me. Um, how many are useful, I don't know, but a lot will open up. All right, let's see if anything is going on with questions or prayer requests or anything like that. I don't have any prayer requests today, so I think I got in the wrong. Yeah, I keep confusing YouTube and YouTube Music. The icon to open it looks about the same, and it's in the same place, same position in my computer. It's I think one is the other one. Okay. Hang on, I need a little help reading this thing. How accurate are the translations? Oh, we had that question already. Uh, yeah, someone said it's more descriptive rather. Yeah, it's makes it clearer. to understand. Well, yesterday, I believe, or the day before, I did a pretty big discourse on the use of the words for land and world, like cosmos in Greek and eretz in Hebrew. So, yeah, we have covered that. You just didn't miss it. You just snapped at me. Actually, you tried putting me down. The Jewish people in America, when they grew up, my generation and the previous generations, they gave the children an English name because they were worried about the Holocaust, which was over when I was born. But they would worry about the Holocaust, so they gave him an English name, and then they gave him a Hebrew name too. Okay, so when they did the circumcision, they assigned the name, and that was the name I was given, Moshe. So you should, try to get your facts together before you kind of lash out. I don't know where the monitors are. I don't know if they're not here or they're here. I didn't look. Um, I don't know. They're volunteers, so if they can be here, they're here, I guess. All right. So um, that's pretty much what I got for today. So I'll get a prayer going for us and some spiritual warfare going for us, and I'll do that. Okay, so my Heavenly Father, Jehovah B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I pray for me and my wife and all the true believers in their household. I pray for all of us to have peace, safety, protection, joy, calm, and rest from you and ourselves. And I pray that we would have strength, stamina, and endurance from you, and we would have your healing and recuperative power flowing through our bodies, healing everything that needs healing. And I pray for our animals and pets and us, to be safe and secure and happy, healthy, and whole. And I pray for the peace of Jerusalem. I pray we don't get bombed and hit with more drones and missiles. That's just going to be more to repair for the believers. Rebuild is the word I think it's used. But it is what it is. And I pray for all of us to understand the Bible better. I pray to be able to do better videos and better translations. And I pray for help in putting this book of prophecy together. I pray I don't have to do it alone. It's just quite a bit of work. And I pray for, I could have somebody do not so much, I could do run the translation and write the footnotes, and somebody else could help me with putting it together. It would have to be somebody on site here. It would work long distance. That'd be somebody here. And I pray for better videos and to do this work. I pray for the strength and the energy to get this work done. Things might get better when we start getting the home health aides helping in the house. I think that maybe help us out more. I pray for us all the true believers, and me and my wife, to have more faith and more wisdom and more mercy and grace. And I submit all this to you. I also pray for everybody that needs a place to live to get a good place to live. Everyone that needs a good job gets a good job from us. Everyone that needs more clients or customers for the business gets that. And I pray for I pray this to you, my Heavenly Father Jehovah, for all of this, for all the true believers of me and my wife and their households and our households. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And you guys that are believers can agree with this, make it, I guess, better. If you agree with it, it would be a good thing. Okay, if you're a believer. All right. Now I'll do something a little different, spiritual warfare. Different group. If you listen, you'll see. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I submit this to you for me and my wife, all the true believers and our households and our families. I loose from all of us or out of us any unclean spirits that might be not so much in the true believers, of course, but in the families and households. And if there is an unclean spirit in them, they gets out too. So all the unclean spirits will come out from these people immediately, never return unto them again. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And I also loose off of any of us any witchcraft or sorcery or spells directed or targeting us is all loosed off and out of us, never to return again. Completely of no value, no effect. And it shall not even return again in a like or similar fashion ever. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And you can agree with this too. I don't believe people that are true believers get unclean spirits. Is there a scripture that says it could never happen? Uh, Not that I'm aware of, but I just don't think it would be likely to ever happen. It does say in one place to turn someone over to Satan for the destruction of the flesh, so the spirit could be saved in the day. Okay, that's an example of somebody having an unclean spirit, I think. Although it might mean the unclean spirit is attacking them from outside. We don't really see unclean spirits in believers because the Holy Spirit's not likely to share being inside you with an unclean spirit. Number one. Number two, more importantly, I don't think the unclean spirit could reside in you with the Holy Spirit there. It would be like, he'd be like nuts, crazy, couldn't do it. So I don't think it happens. But somebody might think they have an unclean spirit that's a believer because the unclean spirit's outside them and conning them. The unclean spirits can at times give believers the illusion that they're the Holy Spirit, they're the Lord, they're Yeshua, they're something, and they're an angel or something, and they feed them advice and scripture doctrines and stuff like that that are wrong. And people should pick up on that easily because there's going to be mistakes and errors. Okay. So the one that's really going to get fooled is the one that's going to put up with mistakes and errors from them. If they tell you something and it never comes to pass, that's not the Lord. If the Lord tells you something specifically, it will come to pass. If you were shown or told something specifically and it never came to pass, you're listening to demons. Okay. Or people that are serving demons if someone actually spoken to you. But okay, so that's what I got today. So if anybody wants to suggest something relating to prophecy that I should cover, uh, just send me an email or put it up in the chat or something. It's better to send me an email so I can prepare for it. My email address is in the last line down in the description box. It's Israel Giving with the number 7 at Gmail. Israel Giving with the digit 7 at gmail.com. That's what I got. So I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And I hope you got something out of this. And, the real purpose of this is to teach, again, the prophecies of Israel, but also to make them clearer for you to grasp. Okay? And not make them clearer for you to grasp by phoning them up like a living Bible or something like that. That's not good.